Hey, welcome to Forest County Outback, and let me apologize for the umpteenth time about the length of time it's taken to get a video out. I'd like to do these every 3 weeks, but for one reason or another, it just doesn't seem to happen. In this video, we go outside of Forest County in the immediate area, and if you follow my channel, you'll know the last, well, really year, as far health-wise, has been a bit rough. And my wife and I were both feeling pretty good, pretty normal. And we decided to reward ourselves with a trip to Colorado and Arizona to visit relatives. So we took a couple weeks and drove cross country and back. And I decided to shoot some video on the way. Show some of the places I've been in the past when I've been out west, and also hit some new places. So I hope you will, it's not Forest County, I hope you'll take the time to watch the video. I hope you enjoy it. I will say the last segment I think was my favorite, and it's a take on the Grand Canyon that I've never heard anybody else talk about. It's not your usual travel log. So if you want to support us, you can do so by subscribing, sharing, liking, and commenting. And remember, comments have to be 7 words to count with the algorithm gods. You can also check out our merch shelf, which is down below here. We also have our little online store, which right now just has the Kellettville panorama. But by the end of the month, we should have the 26 Outback calendar available. And if you want to make a direct donation, you can go to our PayPal link, which is also in the video description, and make a direct contribution. And remember, all our content is AI free. We use no artificial intelligence producing our videos. Oh, hey, let me apologize ahead of time. There's some wind noise in a couple of the segments, and that's been an issue in the past. I thought I had it solved. I had bought a couple of wireless mics that were supposed to take care of that problem, and what I did was I spent a good chunk of money on the world's most useless wireless mics. I'll do a review on them someday, and it will be brutally honest. Hey, welcome to Forest County Outback. And today I can't say welcome to Forest County, Pennsylvania, because you may notice from the scenery, we ain't in Forest County. We're on vacation and we're in Colorado. And our vacations do not include things like, Pigeon Forge and Dollywood. Although I wouldn't mind sitting down talking to Dolly. She seems like a pretty neat person. We don't do Vegas, no Disney, nothing like that. If that's what you're into, hey, go for it. We go to places that are much like Forest County, off the beaten path, not well known, and places that not many people know about. We do some national parks, we do some state parks, and we do places like this mountaintop in Colorado. It's near where we're staying with family, and it's a nice hike up here. There's not much, I don't have any history on the place or a name or anything, but it's just a nice pleasant hike up here. And so in the time-honored American tradition, if you continue to watch this video, I am going to bore you with our vacation photos or videos anyhow. So we're going to be going to some other places. This is Forest County Outback number 61, Other Outbacks. So this is Geneva Creek, and we're heading up this valley to what was one of my favorite hangouts when I lived here, Ganella Pass. Well, this is the summit of Gunilla Pass, and as you can see, there's a little bit of weather up here. I used to come up here quite a bit. You never knew what was going to happen. Quite often there was snow, even in the middle of summer. Now, these passes through the Rockies, they had a history of human use. Many of them had a wagon road dating back to the 1859 gold rush, and I don't know if there was a road through here, but there probably was. They were pretty common. But there was also human activity here going back at least 20,000 years. Paleo Indians used these passes as a hunting ground because large animals like elk, caribou, deer would migrate through these passes, and they would set up stone structures, and we refer to them now as hunting blinds. And what they were doing was channeling the animals into a killing zone. And probably the most famous one for that is Rollins Pass, which is a ways north of here. It's more famous for the Moffett Railroad that ran up over the top of the pass, and a lot of that structure is still there. The old railroad bed is the road, and I used to go there fairly often too. But there are a lot of hunting structures up there from the Paleos. But the Moffett Railroad, like I said, you had the trestles are still there. This one here is the Devil's Slide trestle. In 1978, I drove across that in a CJ5. It was quite a view from there. But getting back to Gunilla, you can see the weather's closing in, and this is typical. I had hopes actually of being able to revisit Rollins Pass and a couple other places, but the roads going up to them are well, they're pretty rough. It's rough going, and 1,500 miles from home is not the place to break a spring or a control arm, and my truck has to last me, so unless I've got a fan here in Colorado who at some future date is willing to haul me up there, I'm probably never going to get back there. But see how changeable the weather is. This is going to probably clear up and the sun will be out here in a few minutes. This behind me is Chimney Rock National Monument. It's in southern Colorado. It's not the Chimney Rock in Nebraska that most people think of. And it is a site of an ancient pueblo. Now, most people drive past this going to Mesa Verde or the Valley of the Ancients, but you know, our thing is to go to the more isolated, quieter spots. And this has a really, really interesting history, which we will get into. And pay attention to this notch. It's very important in the story. Now, the people who lived in this village, they were part of the Chaco Canyon civilization. And Chimney Rock was really an outlier of their, I guess you call it their homeland. They had several villages like that, but this was probably the furthest away, certainly the furthest north. And you have to wonder why they chose to build this village on top of this ridge. Now, they farmed in the valley, but they lived up here. And that meant lugging a lot of stuff up a 1,000-foot hill. But they did it. Now, the people here lived in what were called pit houses, although they really weren't pit houses. They were built at ground level. And this is the remains of one of them. It's been unexcavated. And judging from this mound, you wouldn't have any idea what had been here. And we'll show you an excavated one right down the hill here. So this is an excavated pit house. So you wouldn't look at that mound up there and think that there was any such structure here. And lower walls were made of stone and mortar, and then the roof was supported by poles, and it was covered with sticks and mud. And the entranceway was through the roof by ladder. This was not only a living space, it was a working space. This is where they prepared their food. A lot of grinding stones in these areas. And this is a kiva. And nobody really knows what they were used for. It's assumed that they were used for ceremonial purposes and community gatherings and that. And it's not known if these had a roof on them or not, or was just a wall. This is the trail up to the great house in the upper village. Now we're coming up to the final pitch to the great house. And think for a moment that people who built this had to haul rocks, logs, dirt, water, everything up this trail. Last, we're in sight of the great house here. This is the great house at the top of the ridge, and there's some kivas on down below. But we got storerooms, workrooms, and as I said, all this material had to be brought up from the valley below. So the question becomes, why would they do such a thing? Why would they go to that kind of effort? Because of this. It's Chimney Rock on the right and Companion Rock on the left. The Chacoans, I think that's how you would say it, were great astronomers and mathematicians. And they followed the cycles of the sun, stars, moon, and everything else. And this was an observatory. And after it was discovered, after being abandoned for rediscovered, after being abandoned for about 1,000 years, the supposition was that it was a solar observatory. Scientists came here for several years trying to find the solar alignments, and they just weren't there. And then it finally dawned on them through some other research, namely that the great house had been added on to twice 18 years apart. And it dawned on them that this was a lunar observatory. The cycle of the moon is 18.6 years. And this was set up to observe the northern lunar standstill. Every 18.6 years, the moon will reach its further setting point, its highest latitude in the sky. And that's what all this work was about. And it was obviously a religious site. And it's interesting to note that while Chaco Canyon, the center of their society, was 90 miles south, some high school students in the 1980s proved that it was possible to communicate from here to Chaco Canyon. They used mirrors, but the Puebloans, whatever, they would have used fire. Just think of the Lord of the Rings when they were setting off the row of signal fire, something like that. Well, the kids used mirrors, but they proved that it was possible to communicate with Chaco Canyon in a very short period of time. Now, my wife and I had planned to visit here, spend a day, and then we were going to spend the next day in Mesa Verde. But after our first day here, we decided to blow off Mesa Verde and come back for another day. Why? Because it's quiet and it gives you time to think. The descendants of the people who lived here, the modern descendants, don't believe that these places were ever abandoned. They believe that the spirits of their ancestors still reside here. And that's something to think about. So we came back to spend the second day to basically to contemplate it. Most people today, are wired for constant stimulation. You know, that's why you go in somebody's house and the TV's on. Nobody's watching it, but the TV's on. Or you get people come up here to camp, up to Forest County to camp, and the sounds of nature are not enough. The wind, the water, the birds, it's not enough. They got to have their god-awful bro country blasting on a stereo. They're missing the point. So, one of the things I do like about Forest County is a place like this. You can get away and you can enjoy the quiet and you can think about things. .5 years, 18.6 years in the lunar cycle. When you think about that, and think about the lifespan of people at that time, these had to be multi-generational observations. Hey, we're in Page, Arizona, and that down there is the Glen Canyon Dam. And the writer and environmentalist Edward Abbey has something to say about the Glen Canyon Dam. He said, all dams are ugly, but the Glen Canyon Dam is sinfully ugly. And I agree with him 100%. They have taken this otherworldly landscape and plopped this ugly industrial complex right down in the middle of it, and down here is more of Page. Now, the economic reasons for building this dam were always dubious, but the environmental damage it was going to cause was never in doubt. This dam altered the ecology of the Grand Canyon beyond recognition. Someone from the early 50s would not recognize the Grand Canyon today. And not only that, but upriver too. It turned this wild river into a lake. You had a fantastic area of rock formations, buttes, spires, arches, everything else. It's underwater now. And also tens of thousands of Native American sites. And eventually this dam will silt in, but it's going to take a long time, and those sites upstream are going to be lost. But hopefully when that happens, the environment downstream will return to something similar to what it had been before this dam. One of the people who was instrumental in pushing this thing through was a guy named Fred Dominy. He was a commissioner for the Bureau of Reclamation, and this is a quote from him. The Colorado River without a dam is useless to anyone. I have seen all the wild rivers I ever want to see. You're not going to argue with somebody's logic like that. You're never going to convince them that they're wrong. And this, the reason for the existence of the town of Page was this dam. And while the dam is ugly, Page reflects that. I mean, the people are nice. People are very nice. But the town itself is just incredibly ugly. And if I didn't have relatives here that I was visiting, I would never come back here. So I know this video is supposed to highlight places that I enjoy seeing, but this is a place I don't enjoy. And like I said, without visiting family, I would never ever return to this abomination. This is another place I enjoy, although it's been a fairly recent discovery and I haven't really spent much time here. This is the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. And most people just drive here going to the north rim of the Grand Canyon or the parks in southern Utah, and they don't pay much attention to this. This is, not many people visit here, and it is just unbelievably beautiful. And this is the valley of the Colorado River. We're downstream from Page, Arizona. It's the Vermilion Cliffs, from about 5 miles away. This is the south rim of the Grand Canyon. Now when I come through the Grand Canyon, I do my usual routine. I try to find a place that's isolated and quiet away from people. You can tell from the background noise I'm not having very much luck today. You may think I don't like people. It's not that. I just don't like a lot of people. Or at least I don't like a lot of people in one spot. Now in my videos, I don't get into metaphysics too often, but this is a place that I'm going to talk about it here, because these are the things I think of when I come here. I first came here several years ago, and when you first see this canyon, it's very hard to get your mind around what you're looking at. And it's not just the size of this, the immensity of it. It's also the time. It took 6.5 million years for this canyon to form. And during that time, the Colorado River changed its direction of flow 2 or 3 times. The oldest rocks at the bottom of this canyon were formed 2 billion years ago. That puts human existence into perspective. Modern humans have only existed for about 300,000 years. And we're not even a blip on that timeline. We're not even a dot on that timeline. This canyon was here long before humans existed. It will be here long after humans cease to exist. And remember, what I'm telling you, it's coming from an ordained minister. But our lives, this, as I said, this puts things into perspective. Our lives, our petty grievances and worries, they mean nothing in a long-term scheme of things. And some people have a hard time dealing with that because humans tend to be egocentric, and you got these, people think, we are the center of the universe. Everything revolves around us. Well, this shows me that we're not. Things do not revolve around us. We are not the center of the universe. And many people can't deal with that. And they want to dominate nature. That's why you used to hear so many proposals to put dams in the Grand Canyon, because they wanted to control it. They couldn't let it just be a wild river and create its own destiny. Personally, I find the knowledge that we are basically meaningless. I find it what the hell's the word I want? I find it liberating. The pressure's off. What a relief. It's not all about us. And that's the kind of thing I think about when I'm here. I feel like everybody should come here at least once in their life and experience this place. And I understand why people keep coming back. I do, myself. In 1908, Theodore Roosevelt wrote these words about the Grand Canyon. He said, "Let this great wonder of nature remain as it now is. You cannot improve upon it. But what you can do is keep it for your children, your children's children, and all who come after you, as one of the great sights which every American should see." All right, that's it for Forest County Outback number 60, other Outbacks. In the video, I described it as number 61. Yeah, I screwed up. Don't be too hard on me. Hope you liked it. I enjoy making it, as I always do, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.